Hey guys, it's Misty from the Book Rat, and I'm going to do a Friday Reads for you. Now, I technically am not reading anything yet because I just finished up a book and I haven't picked up a new one, but rather than decide what I'm going to read and pick that book up and read you a little excerpt of that, I decided to go with an excerpt of the book I just finished because I friggin' loved it and I want to share it with you guys. So, I'm going to give you an excerpt of The Princess Curse by Mary Haskell. You may recall that The Princess Curse was in the stack of 5 for this month, and it did not get picked. You guys actually picked Godmother by Carolyn Turgeon, which I have read and will be video reviewing for you. But this month, since I did excerpts and gave you guys a little sneak peek of each of the books, I couldn't get this one out of my mind. So when I finished Godmother, even though I probably should have moved on with the rest of my TBR for January, I had to pick this up, and I am so very glad that I did. For those of you who didn't know, this is a retelling of The 12 Dancing Princesses. Among other tales, it actually sort of mashes up a few of my favorite tales, like it was tailor-made for me. But The 12 Dancing Princesses was my favorite story when I was a kid. I still have my copy and still adore it. And one of the things I always loved about it was the underworld, the world that the princesses were drawn to each night, where they had to dance until dawn. So, instead of starting at the beginning, I am going to give you a little scene from the first time that the main character follows the princesses into the underworld. The descent seemed to take forever, with the princesses hobbling on pained feet. Most of them were only capable of walking down one step at a time, like a small child who is first learning how to use stairs. I took care to hang back, well away from Mihaj, and Mihaj seemed to have gotten the sense to stay well away from Lacrimora's hem, at least. Eventually, the stairs gave way to snow. I hesitated on the last stone step, my foot poised in midair. The snow glowed slightly, even where it covered winter-sleeping trees ahead. The door and the floor I'd expected, and the stairs leading down, and the dark passageway, but I'd never anticipated a whole world beneath the surface of our world. A world with trees and snow. St. Hildegard's garden, I swore in amazement. My hand flew to my mouth, covering it too late. None of the princesses glanced back, but Mihaj looked over his shoulder. His glance passed right through me, though, and while he hesitated a long moment, he followed Lacrimora. I dropped my foot to the ground. The snow crunched lightly, and the chill spread slowly. Snow in July. It was impossible, wasn't it? I trotted after the princesses, catching up with Mihaj as he entered a copse of trees, whose trunks were tarnished silver. Icicles like faceted glass dripped from laden branches. Wonderingly, I reached out to touch a branch. Were these living trees? The small branch broke as soon as I touched it, and it plopped into the snow. The brittle snap of the twig rang out in the silent wood like a harquebus shot. Mihaj jumped behind a tree trunk, while I froze in place. A few princesses peered back toward me, saw nothing, and went on. Only Ottilia stopped dead on the path. My stomach seized with apprehension, but she didn't look around. Lacrimora nudged her sister in the back. Move along, they're waiting. Ottilia moved on, and Lacrimora followed. Mihaj eventually broke from the cover of his tree and went after them. The silver twig shone dully in the snow. I scooped it up and tucked it into my herb pouch, resolving not to touch anything else. I hurried after the group. The forest lightened with each step. At first I thought the snow was glowing brighter, or perhaps my eyes were adjusting, but truly the sky was lightening and we were walking into dawn. The snow grew patchy here, giving way to piles of autumn leaves of bright pinks and purples and golds, such as I had never seen, not among summer flowers or even royal silks. And the sun, a sun anyway, narrow and dark as though we were viewing the normal sun through the blue veil of the Virgin in a stained-glass window, rose, sending slender shifts of light through the trees. The trees changed from tarnished silver to greening copper. My fingers itched to touch and investigate these plants. I dared not touch any more branches, but did spy bits of deadfall. I collected a verdigris twig from the ground, rolling it between my fingers. I sniffed it, and it smelled like metal. I put that twig in my pouch, too. The sun rose quickly, so quickly that it seemed like a dream. With every footstep, the strange sun gained a degree in height, and only when I stopped to collect the twig did I realize that the sun was in direct correlation to our progress through the forest. When I stopped walking, the sun stopped rising. I paused many times, trying to make sense of this phenomenon, until I lagged far behind the princesses and had to sprint to catch up. They had no care for any of this. They were well used to it, I guessed. Did Mihaj notice? I couldn't tell. He didn't seem as intrigued by the forest as I was. The sun became of secondary concern to me as autumn forest became summer forest. The darkened sun was at noon height now, and the tree trunks were spotty brass. Leaves of dull emerald hung silently on still trees. It felt most strange to be in a forest without animals, without wind, without water. The dark light was oppressive, casting strange, deep shadows everywhere. The forest path wandered through a field of shimmering white ferns, like the ones my cap was made of. The princess's long skirts slithered against these plants, spilling diamond seeds to the ground. Here, the path was a glittering scar of brown earth worn into the forest floor. I longed to kneel and bury my fingers in the soil to assess its quality for growing herbs, maybe even to dab a bit of the dirt on the tip of my tongue, like Sister Annika had taught me. But it wasn't even proper soil. It looked like crushed garnets, and it made me uneasy. The whole forest, in fact, made me uneasy. Something about the unreal shine to everything, while fascinating at first, felt unnatural in the end. I did stoop to pick up a fallen brass twig, however, which I also tucked into my pouch. Then summer forest gave way to spring. The sun was setting here, or was it rising? We had walked backward through the seasons, so perhaps we were also walking backward through the course of a day. I couldn't say. Long rays of dull red light shot through bronze trees. Ruby and emerald buds dotted the branches, and the forest floor was speckled with patches of young grass and amethyst starflowers. The effect was pleasing, until I looked more closely. The buds bore blight at their centers, and the grass was pale and withering. I collected a bronze twig here. We came out of the trees onto the banks of an enormous lake, where starless night reigned once again. The blazing light of 10,000 candles danced across dark water, shining from a golden pavilion standing on a hill. Sweet music drifted to us, and 12 little boats waited on the shore, each with a lantern hanging from a tall hook at the stern. Beside each boat stood an oarsman wearing red livery, each oarsman more handsome than the last. Each man held out a hand to a princess, who took the hand and turned to wait for her sisters. "My lords," Lacrimore said, the last to arrive, "we have a follower." She turned and swept her arm out wide to point straight at Mihaj, half hidden behind a bronze tree and frozen in fear. Like dogs on a hunt, the oarsmen raised their heads toward Mihaj and attacked as one. That was from The Princess Curse by Mary Haskell, which is out now. I have left links to Goodreads and Amazon below, so you can check it out, pick it up, add it to your wish list or your to-read, which I would highly, highly suggest you do. I absolutely loved this. But that is all for me for now, and as always, happy reading!